Hi, this is Cheryl St.Pierre of Majestic Wire Artworks. In this video, I am going to show you how to make these disco ball drops. This was a custom order for a customer, and I figured, I think I had promised to show you this pair of earrings in my membership video, and so I figured if I'm making a set for my customer, I might as well make a video out of it and share it with you. Normally I do contrasting beads on top, but she wanted them all the same, so customers get what they want, and this is how they turned out. And I still think they're wonderful. I love this color with the copper, especially when it antiques and gets darker on its own. I've been asked for oxidizing. They'd love to see it oxidized. I really like earrings to oxidize naturally, because when you wear them, it doesn't take long. They get dark all by themselves, and you don't need those extra chemicals on the ear wires or anything. So just let them do it on their own naturally. Okay, so I'd like to ask you to look up at the links on top of my channel. If you're on the computer, I don't know where they are on the phone. I don't think you can access them from a phone. I have my new Etsy link up there for my bookmarks, and you could take a look, and by all means drop a line, say hi, tell me if you liked the video, and go from there. So let's begin. Okay, for the supply list, I'm doing something different with this video. I'm actually going to verbalize the whole supply list. So, and I want, if you're looking for my video, where it's going to start, it's where you're going to see the pliers. That's why I put the pliers there. So the first thing I want you to have is a pen and paper at the ready, so that you can write down instructions, because I'm finding that a lot of people don't look in the descriptions for the supplies, and they ask me the supplies in the questions, and that's not what I want to encourage. So I'm going to just verbally state it here. I'm going to have supplies in the description as well, but the bending instructions and stuff like that, I'm going to have it all here in the video. So you should write it down as we go. I will try to remember to remind you to write it down. Okay, so what you're going to need, of course, is your pen and paper. You're going to need round nose pliers, flush cutters, and chain nose pliers. Rule of thumb, these are this is what I mainly use for all my projects. I don't use other fancy tools very much, so I try to keep it basic for you. And what else that you're going to need is, you are going to need 6 pieces of 6 7-inch pieces, which is 17.5 centimeters of 20 gauge wire, which in metric is 0.81 millimeters. You're going to need 1 piece 5 feet long, which is 150 centimeters of 28 gauge wire, which is 0.31 millimeters in metric. You're going to need your ear wires of choice. You will need 6 4mm bicones of choice. My custom order asked for them to be the same color as my disco ball. I normally have a contrasting color, but these will be made with all the same color beads. So change it up as you see fit. And 2 of the disco ball beads, which mine measure out to be 7 millimeters. So I would say a 7 millimeter to an 8 millimeter round bead for this design. It doesn't have to be disco ball. I'm just calling them disco ball drops because that's the bead I'm using. And then if you're gonna do a search for my tutorials, just do Cheryl St.Pierre disco ball drops, and it should take you right to my tutorial. Okay, so you're gonna need a ruler, and I think that's it. I think that's everything. So what we're going to start with, and I've done my weaving ahead of time, is I've got one piece of 28 gauge wire to do the weaving, and what I want you to do is weave your length on the first one, which I will show you how to do instructions, but once you're done, snip it off about half inch, an inch, and then use the remainder of the 28 gauge wire to make your next piece. Now the 28 gauge wire is your weaving wire, and it's the 0.31 millimeter wire. Just for those that don't do gauges. Okay, so I am going to show you, because I've got my weaving done already, I'm going to demonstrate the weave with two shorter pieces and shorter piece of wire, and weaving wire, that is. And the first step I do is I lasso them in, and if you've done many of my tutorials, you will know this. I put the tail over top like this, and I wrap it around once. I push that together just so that it's close together like that. Then I introduce the next wire down below, and I know I do my weaving different than just about everybody else. That's just the way I am. I also like my weaving to be done ahead of time and then introduced to the project. And the reason I invented this method of making jewelry is because I have difficulties with weaving because of my hands. I have issues with my hands, and so my method is a little bit different than everybody else's. Okay, so, and if you have issues with your hands, you might appreciate what I do. So all I did was wrap around that one wire and then wrapped around the second wire. And it holds the wires very nicely together for you to start doing the weave. Now this is a 3/4 weave. I use this weave a lot. For 2 wires, this is my favorite weave because it's consistent. I don't like the one where you go round, 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 and then up twice. It's okay once in a while, but most times I don't know. I like the richness of this weave. So I'm going to be starting with my weave. I've got it on top, and I'm going underneath both, coming around top. And actually, no, sorry. Yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And then I'm going to go, there's 2 ways I could have done this. And I'm going to go down the middle. So it's got 2 shorts is way I'm looking at it. So I went underneath both, up, and then down between the 2 middle ones. Okay, that gives me, it doesn't give me a straight, I just have 2 shorts. Now, okay, now I'm going to go over top of the 2. And I'm going to come up in the middle. So I went over the top and then underneath. Okay, and now I'm going up. I went underneath both, and now I'm going down the middle. So do you see how I'm doing that? I'm going 3/4 of the way around. So I'm coming from the middle, going around like that. And, oh, I see I wasn't in the camera. I will start again. I will start again. Okay. Okay. So I'm underneath at this point, underneath the 2. And I'm going to get close to the camera so you can see what I'm doing. Over top, both, coming up in the middle. Okay, push it over. Now I'm going underneath both, coming up from the top, and I will go down the middle too. Okay, does that make sense? Okay, I'm going to cinch it up now. You don't want to go too long without cinching it up in between. I push it with my pliers like that because I can't use my nails. My nails just break way too easy. And so now, again, I'm underneath, come down between the two. I'm going to go over top of the two wires and around and up between two wires. And now I'm going underneath both, coming up and going down between the two wires. Up and over top of the two wires and then coming up between the two wires. Going underneath both wires, coming up, and now I'm coming down between the two wires. Okay? And that is the 3/4 weave. Now I have a better description in it in my tips membership. And once in a while I make that available to the public. Okay, so that's all there is to this weave. It's actually quite simple. Once you've got your repetitions down, it becomes quite quick. And I find this weave actually very easy to do. Okay, so that's what you do with the weave. So what I want you to do, once you've learned how to do the weave, is you're going to take 2 of your 7-inch pieces of 20 gauge wire. 7 inches is 17.5 centimeters. And I want you to start your weave at, where do I have this written down? Start weave at 2.5 inches from the right end. 2.5 inches is 63 millimeters in metric. So write that down, 63 millimeters or 2.5 inches from the right, because it's not going to be in your description. And I want you to weave 1.5 inches. Now that's going to be a little bit long, but I'd rather have, because we're going to end up cutting off the end anyways. And so 1.5 gives you plenty of length, and 1.5, write this down, 1.5 inches is 38 millimeters in metric. So 38 millimeters long. It's approximate, okay? It's going to be a little bit extra long. And you're going to make 2 of them. So you're going to snip off your weaving wire because you're going to have big extra length. And once you've done your 1.5 inches on the first one, snip it off. And then you're using that wire to start weaving on the next two 7-inch pieces of wire. Okay, and then so you're going to have them both woven and ready to go. So you pause here, do your weaving, and then catch up with me. The next step we're going to do is element on top, the C-wrap element, and we're going to need 2 7-inch pieces of 20 gauge wire for that as well. That's part of the 6 pieces I asked you to cut ahead of time. Okay, so pause here. Okay, so now we're going to make the C-wrap elements. And so you've got your 2 pieces of 20 gauge, which is 0.81 millimeter wire. And I want you to bend them at 2.5 inches. And 2.5 inches is 63 millimeters approximately. Okay, so I want you to do that with both of them. So bend both of them at 2.5 inches. Okay, so the next step is to make the loops. Now the beads are going to go on the short piece. We're going to make the loop with the longer piece. So this part, this is 7 inches, and then this part is 2.5 inches. So this part will be 4.5 inches. So that's the part we're going to make the loop with, and we're going to do the wrapping around the beads with. Okay, so I'm just going to make one, then I'm going to get you to pause, and then you can make the second one. So the first thing we're going to do is start with a loop on top. So I've got the 2.5 inch piece in my hand, and I've got the 4.5 inch piece heading out that way. And I'm putting my pliers for the size of loop I want for the top of the earring, which is a smaller loop. And we just wrap it around. So it looks like that so far. Flipping my pliers. And now finishing off the loop. So now it's an eye loop. And an eye loop looks like that. So it's nice and straight. If it wasn't straight, you should fix it, because it's going to be the top of the earring. And we want you to wrap around this part. Let's just do it twice. Like that. So it's going to look like 3 wraps, but it's really only twice. And I'm going to cinch it up because it's spread out a little bit. And this is an easy fix. Okay. And we're going to make both elements exactly the same. You can reverse them if you want by just reversing the loop, doing a frontwards loop and do the backwards loop, but it's not necessary to do that with these earrings. So we're going to make both of them the same. Okay, we'll reverse the bottom part though. So that's ready to go. We're going to introduce the first 4mm bicone. So I've got that there. I'm holding the bicone in place, and I'm just going to bend this around like this. Okay, and I'm just going to wrap around that, and I'm supporting the C part with my thumb. It gives me a good grip, and that is all you need to do. And I'm going to take this and I'm going to push it up just to make sure there's no loose spots. And there we are. Okay, so now it's ready for the second bead, and we only put 3 on each. And I'm going to do the same process, except for I'm holding the bead in place with my finger and wrapping around it like this, just giving it a frame is really all it is. And it gives it strength, and it looks pretty, and it definitely gives the handmade look to your pieces when you do things like this, make these elements. And there's a lot of people have interest in jewelry that looks handmade these days. It's trendy, I guess is the word to say. Okay, so I've got the third bead on, did the same process, and I'm wrapping it around there. And at this point, I'm only wrapping once. Actually, no, I'm going to try and match that wrap up there. Let's give it 2 wraps. Okay, so it's going to look like 3, but it's only 2 kind of thing. And snip it off at the back as close as you can. And if there's anything sticking out, then you need to crimp it in. Okay, so you want it to look like that. Now I'm just gonna make sure it's sitting all straight. And if you have spaces, cinch it in. And then the next thing to do is an open loop going the opposite way. So the top is going this direction. We want the bottom loop to be frontwards and backwards. Okay, so 90 degrees to the top loop. And we can start by pushing the wire like this, just like that. This is the front. And the same size of loop. It won't be as, it's harder to make this loop perfect looking. You can, but it doesn't always work out that way. So it's going to look like that. And see, it's not perfect, but it doesn't really matter because it's being faced this way. And you can make it perfect if you want. So what I want you to do is trim it off right in there. That's why I love these flush cutters of mine, because they're really tiny and I can get in there and do that snip. And then now it's an open loop to put your other element on. And there, make 2 of those. And if it's not straight, just straighten it until you're happy with that. And that one's done. Okay, so I've got both of mine made now, and I put them on the ear wires already, just so that I don't need to do that later on. It's just a step faster for you, because I know you know how to put them on an ear wire. So this is the closed loop that's attached to the open loop of the ear wire. This is an open loop that will be attached to the closed loop of the drop that we'll be making. Okay, so the next step is you've got your 2 pieces of weaving, and they're going to be opposites. So we're going to take and bend one of the long wires down and one not quite straight up. We want to measure that. So I'm just going to go with doing 1 right now, and then we'll have to make sure that we do the opposite direction for the next one. So normally what I do at this point, because you need enough length for the width of your weave, and what I normally do is take my pliers and go the thickest part, but I'm thinking that everybody's pliers are slightly different, so I kind of did that and I measured it, and it was approximately 4.5 millimeters. So let's just bend it at 5 millimeters. I'm going to actually do mine because I know mine's the right length, and just to show you that it ended up being that in millimeters. Okay, so it's, oh, I'll better get that up there. Okay, so I've got it, and it's about 4.5 millimeters, 5 millimeters. You know, the bend is so gradual that it's iffy as to the look of the measurement. So if you want to measure that and do your bend, that's all you need to do. And it actually should be facing this way, because we're making the loop go this way. That was correct. It doesn't matter because it bends anyways, but, and we're going to just make a loop at that point, a smaller loop again, and we don't have to reverse any loops in these earrings at all, so that's kind of nice. So I'm just going to show you the one of making loops, because it's going to be just like we did for the other element where it's the eye loop. And now I'm going to wrap until it meets the weaving, and the wrap is going to be hidden, but it's what's giving the stem of the earring its stability. Okay, I'm just going to cinch that up, straighten it out, snip it off. Be careful to only snip off that wire. Okay, and actually we did want it bent up like that because this is going to wrap around the bead, and the bead is going to be on this wire. So at this point, you don't need to trim this wire off at all, but we do need to trim off this one. So at this point, trim it off, crimp it in. So it's right there. crimp it in. It's not vital that it's crimped in. Okay. So, and this wire needs to be crimped in as well. It actually isn't sticking out much at all. But there you have it. Okay, so now I'm taking my disco ball bead and putting it on. And then my customer wants the green part of my bead because it's pink. It shines through pink on the one side, and she wants the green at the front. So I will put it there. It'll roll around, but that's what we want near the front. Okay, so I'm holding the bead in place there, and I'm gently wrap around that bead, and it's gonna, we want to keep the weave facing forward. And somebody mentioned that I am brutal with my weaving, but if you knew how gently I'm pushing, I'm never brutal with my weaving. Sometimes people just don't know what they're talking about. And it keeps flipping on me, but there we go. And I want to go behind this wire because that wire is going to be in the front as part of our ornament. Okay, so we just try to hug the bead as best we can. And I'm going to flip this over again. Okay, so at this point, gotta make sure all the weaving is flush again, and it keeps spinning, and it'll do the same to you. We just try and have it as flat as can be. And sometimes it's just that difficult to keep it flat. Okay, so now I am going to wrap around the stem. See, we have plenty of excess weaving. And it's going to have, it doesn't want to stay straight for me, but if it's going to bend, we want it to bend back, not forward, because it'll look awkward. Okay, so that's, and 5 millimeters is actually too long. Go with 4, write that down, 4 millimeter bend. And I'm going to, what I want to do is bend this around to touch that. And we're cutting off the weave, and somebody asked a long time ago, isn't your weave going to unravel? No, it won't. If it does, it's going to do 1 or 2 wraps, and because it's touching the other weave, it's going, now I'm going to cinch it up. I don't want to try and mar that weave. I cut it too short there. So I'm just doing my best right there. So you want to have it long enough. Okay, see, I did not mar my wire. I was gentle. And there it is. Okay, so now the next step is we want to go the same direction that we did with the weave around the bead with the single wire. But we're actually going to, because we're starting at the bottom, we're going up and then around again. And I've got to push this wire closer to the bead. So it hugs the bead better. Okay, so it's like that. Let's see if I can get it nice and close. And now I'm going to wrap around there. And I'm going to snip it off here. So I actually had 8 inches of 20 gauge. I told you 7 inches because I knew 8 inches was too long. So yours will be about this long. You could even go 6.5 inches long if you're doing sterling silver. And now I'm just going to tuck that down in there. And there it is. Okay. So because I made the stem of this one so long, I have to do the same with the next one. Now, you could do yours shorter. Okay, so there's that. There it is. Okay, so with the other one, we had this one with the weaving on the right hand side. This one we're going to have the weaving on the left hand side, and then make the loop up, and then the bead stem down, and then we're going to wrap it the opposite direction. Okay, so this one's ready to put on one of these, and I'm just going to show you how to do that. Just open up the loop that way, put it on, and there it is. Okay, so now I'm going to do the opposite side. Snip this wire off. Make my loop. And I'm going to pause it for the loop because you've seen it already. Okay, so I've got that part done. And now I'm just going to put the bead on. Hold the bead in place. Wrap it around. So it's like this time. Wrap it around the same way we did before. And I'm not going to bore you through how I do it. And I will pause and get back. Okay, so I have it formed like that. Now I'm going to just, this weave is a little bit shorter than the last one. I must have just gone extra long. This time I'm making sure I don't do it too short. And because the weaving isn't as long, we have to trim back that wire. And the end of it is underneath, so I don't have to worry about crimping it. And now I'm going to make it touch. Like that. Okay, so that's what it looks like. And now I'm going to follow the same direction that the weave did. And I'm going to make sure that it's really hugging the bead at the bottom. Okay. And wrap carefully around that bead. And around like that. And to the back. That, and trim it down, and then just bend it in just like the other wires. If your wire's sticking up a little bit, just push it down. And that one is done. That one turned out really, really pretty. Well, they're both pretty. Okay, and now I'm just going to put it on to here. And basically, this pair of earrings is complete. So the next thing, to make sure it's dangling straight forward, make sure all your loops are going straight and that it's hanging appropriately. And this one's doing very well. And this one is to the left a little bit, so I'm going to adjust this loop a tiny bit. Okay, there we go. And there they are. Done. So if you like this video, please share it on Facebook or Instagram, or whichever. Give my link, share my name. If you do it, show what you did and say you got it from my tutorial, and I would really appreciate that. And please say hi to me in the comments. The more comments I get, the better my videos do. And check out my links. I now have my Facebook link to my for my bookmarks up at the top. I just did that this week, and yeah, I'm featuring a lot of my Bible verse bookmarks. That if you have a favorite Bible verse, I can make a bookmark for you with your Bible verse. Please ask. And of course, there's other bookmarks there too. I even have a skull. Got to think of those boys, my one grandson. So I made him one for Christmas. So I put one up in Etsy too. Okay, so thanks for joining me. God bless, and take care of yourselves. Bye for now.